Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Archive Speaker Meeting. My name is Nick. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Nick.
Can we please have a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers, followed by the serenity prayer? God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
We ask that you please take a moment now to silence your cell phones out of respect for your fellows. And we will now pass the basket in honor of the seventh tradition, which states, every AA group ought to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. $15 would go towards rent of this meeting space, and the rest would go to District 17. I'm going to read the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And welcome to the Archive Speaker Meeting. Our mission is to document permanently the work of Alcoholics Anonymous, to make the history of the organization accessible to AA members, and to provide a context for understanding AA's progression, principles, and traditions. Is there anyone here who has less than 30 days of sobriety? Please raise your hand. Welcome. Welcome. Is there anyone here with more than 15 years of sobriety? Please raise your hand. Awesome. The speakers selected for this meeting are old-timers. An AA old-timer is any member who has been continuously sober for a significant period of time. The definition of significant is open to interpretation, but for the purpose of this meeting, an old-timer is considered anyone with 20 years or more of sobriety. The old-timers interviews serve as a representation of the significant impact that long-term sobriety can have on our AA community. And without further ado, I will introduce our speaker, Mark C.
Thank you.
We've got some questions for you, Mark. What is your sobriety date?
March 15th, 1988.
All right.
That's how I feel.
Who was the president of the United States when you first became sober or joined Alcoholics Anonymous?
I think Bush. I really don't remember, to tell you the truth. Probably George Bush, the first.
Okay. When and where was your first contact with AA?
I think my first contact, somebody came up to detox when I was in the old A Center down on Dominic Drive. Can't think of his name now, he's dead. Unfortunately, this didn't take for him, but he came up and shared with us in the detox. Frankly, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Okay. Can you describe what Alcoholics Anonymous was like when you joined compared to today?
You know, it's funny. AA was wonderful when I came here. It was different than it is now, but people were staying sober. The main message you got in the meetings was don't drink, go to meetings, and do service work. A lot of the old timers would tell you never ever do a fifth step with an alcoholic, because what happens if he drinks and he'll go tell everyone. So that was very different from now. There was nobody raising their hands. It was never even brought up in a meeting, is anyone looking for a sponsor, or is anyone willing to be a sponsor? It just wasn't talked about, really. And your sponsor usually was somebody you would go out to coffee with, call once in a while, go to meetings with. Very different than now. More often than not, you're in a meeting, people are talking about these things. So.
Okay, interesting. What were you like as a newcomer, and how do you think others would describe you when you were a newcomer?
To say I was a little bit uncivilized would be an understatement. I remember being early on. I was in treatment for 30 days, so I went to meetings in the bus with the nuts, the nut house bus. But once I was on my own, I remember leaving a meeting downstairs, and there was a guy here, Chuck W. And he's a big biker guy, and he followed me out of the meeting, and he goes, "Dude, what is your problem?" And I'm like, "What?" Because I liked AA, right? I didn't think I had a problem with AA. He goes, "You make people nervous." He says, "You're eyeballing them, man. You're like watching them." And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, probably. That's the world I come from. When you come from the streets, you pay attention. So you would have described me as being a little uncivilized, perhaps. Wound a bit tight, maybe.
Okay. Who was your first sponsor, and how did you end up with them?
Jerry S. His nickname around here was the Big Shoe. When you see these wooden camels and stuff, Jerry made all those. And he became my sponsor through central office. So I'm at the treatment center, and I'm in like week 2, and a nurse came in and said, "Get ready, you're going with your sponsor to a meeting." And I said, "What? What do you mean sponsor?" She said, "Yeah, your temporary sponsor's here." Well, how did I get him? I don't, none of this makes no sense. So I get dressed, and the nurse just said, "Get dressed and go." So I come around the corner, and here's a guy standing there. He's got black hair, slicked back like Fonzie, black leather coat on, and he's chatting up everybody's laughing, and they all know him, and obviously he's well-liked. And he's got a briefcase, and it's covered with fluorescent Jesus Loves Me stickers. I'm not exaggerating when I say covered. And I thought, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm going out in public with him? He was my first sponsor, thank God.
Okay. Who were the alcoholics prominent in your early sobriety?
Jerry was one. There was a group here in town called the Retreads that met over here at Atonement Church. Ron Brulette, Marty Ketch, Billy Goat Bob, everybody called him that. I don't remember what his last name was actually. Looked a lot like Charles Manson, but he got my attention. Sherry Yu, a bunch of people who had struggled for years in and out of sobriety and had found sobriety in that group. That's why they called themselves Retreads. Another one was Dale Kurt. I can't ever forget him. There's an old guy that he took a liking to me, and he was a member of the Tape of the Month Club for like 40 years. So he would bring me little boxes of cassette tapes of speakers. And that's probably one of the many things that saved my life. Green Dick, if you didn't have anything to do, Green Dick would either have you moving someone or breaking up concrete all the way around people's entire neighborhoods. Jesus Christ, the stuff we did. Don Burry. Don Burry was this gruff old dude. Harry Clark. They're all passed away. Sober. Danny Bishop. Danny Bishop was, I liked him. See, the rest of these people seemed to me to be a bit nice. They talked a lot about nice stuff. And Danny had a little bit of edge to him. I liked him. And he owned bars and other things. So, yeah, there were a lot of them. And another one, and I forget sometimes to mention her, was Nancy Majors. She was Dale Kurt's sister. And everybody called her Mom. She was just a wonderful, wonderful person. So, yeah, there were tons of them. I can't even remember them all. So,
Okay. Can you think of any AA catchphrases from back then that you don't hear anymore, and what did they mean to you?
Behind every skirt is a slip. That was a popular one. That has not been my experience. My experience is they slip, not me. But don't drink, go to meetings. That was very, very commonly said. Yeah, there was, I think back now, it was very much saying oriented. My sponsor, Al, used to say that, those are issues and tissues meetings. So now we got 10 alcoholics in a room and we're going to discuss relationships. Oh my God, why don't we bring hand grenades? None of us are qualified to, So that was kind of the tenor of a lot of the meetings was, has anybody got a problem they want to talk about? So, but don't drink, go to meetings. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Did you get involved in service early on? And if so, what did you do?
Yeah. I became a GSR. I think I was sober 60 days. Actually, before that, I got out of treatment, and I was, like I say, I had some issues. I owned a bar at the time, so I got to go to this place every day. I don't recommend that to any newcomers to go to a bar every day, but I did, and I was pretty nuts. And Green Dick told me, he says, they had just opened central office, I think, like 2 weeks before I got out of treatment. It literally just opened. And he says, you should go over there and volunteer. And I said, well, you got to have 6 months of sobriety. He goes, lie. You ain't going to make 6 months if you don't do something. So I did. I went, well, I just lied and told whoever was behind the desk that, oh yeah, I've been 6 months sober. So I did that. And I became a GSR. And I remember riding up to the GSR school at central office in Milwaukee. And I'm learning what that's going to mean. And I asked the lady who was she was a former New York delegate. I said, I've only been sober like 2 months, maybe. I said, are you sure that maybe I shouldn't be doing this? And she says, well, are you willing? I said, yeah, okay. She goes, you're it. Very important principle in Alcoholics Anonymous. Are you qualified? Hell no. Are you willing? You're it. Go ahead. So I did that. I was the PI chair in the district. And yeah, I did all kinds of stuff like that. Nothing ever with the club. I've never been a club person. But I worked in area service probably for the first 5 years I was sober.
Okay. What kind of events or sober social activities were there when you got sober? And tell us what those were like.
Oh, dances. So the first time I think I was even at the Grove Club was for the Irish St. Patrick's Day dance. So they bring us all over here in the bus, and we came in that door, and standing at the top of the stairs is this guy my size with a green beard, and I mean big beard, a green top hat and a green tuxedo with green Tony Lama boots. I'm Dick, I'm a grateful green alcoholic. And I'm thinking, this guy's got to be the president or emperor of this whole deal. And that was my first experience with sober yippee. And my dear friend Mike said, you make me tired. I was not a fat old man then. As I'm out here dancing with the 19-year-old girls and whatnot, I had a ball. I've never been bashful, as it were. So, but there were a lot of dances. Big events. I was right out of treatment in the spring, and I drove up to the Red Carpet Hotel or whatever by the airport, was the area conference. And I didn't have any money. My finances were a bit much, but they said, you don't have to pay for the speaker. So I drove up there. I'd been to open meetings at the Grove, and the guy who spoke, his name was Franklin Williams. I highly recommend anyone who listens to speakers, go find a talk by Franklin Williams. I remember that as if it was yesterday. So I went to that. I just walked in the door and sat down, and the great thing about AA, nobody gives a shit. Sit down. We're not giving you a meal, though. So.
All right. What was your first home group, and why did you decide to make that group your home?
The Retreads group, because Jerry brought me there. And I found something there that I still look for in a group. Jerry brought me over there from the treatment center, and as we were coming in the door, there was just this buzz in the room, and everybody was joking and laughing and enjoying themselves. And when the meeting started, it was deadly serious. And so they did a first step for me. And man, some of the shit those people said, I was sitting there going, holy Christ. This one woman, her bottom was, they found her on the edge of a half-dug grave, shooting into the grave at the guy who had molested her when she was a kid. And she's sharing this in the meeting. I'm like, holy shit. And then I thought, yeah, these are actually my kind of people. I understand her. So that was my home group for years. Yeah, until we started the By the Book group. So.
Okay. What do you remember most about the first time you sponsored someone?
So my sponsor at the time told me that the nature of the beast here is if you've done a fifth step, you can take somebody through the first three steps. He goes, we don't teach what we haven't learned here yet. And it was, I think it was told to me early on, we're not here to help anyone as much as we are to share. They're going to have to do the work. But I don't think I approached it that way. I think I pretty well approached it which is funny because Jerry was the sweetest guy on earth, never told me to do anything. But I think I was like telling people right away, pretty much. Personality shit. So I don't think he stayed sober. My first winner was Daryl, and that was hilarious. That's a whole story in itself. I did yell at him.
What is prayer to you, and what are your prayer habits like?
Boy, after many, many years, if I was in a meeting with you when I was 10, 12, 15 years sober and I was talking about meditation, I was lying because I frankly just didn't do it. And I had all kinds of bullshit reasons, horrible reasons for not doing it. Eventually, what I found is getting up and basically now as I'm waking up, as I'm becoming aware of, it's real simple. Thank you, Lord. Because I'm waking up, and at my age now, I know people who don't, So that's a habit of the last several years. And then I have a meditation that I get from my sponsor, Mel, and Mel's kind of funny. He's going to celebrate 50 years next week, God willing. And he expects a response. So not only am I going to read it, but I'm going to. And then I use two other meditation books. One of them is the Al-Anon One Day at a Time meditation book. But it's a habit of the day. And then I'll be honest with you, the rest of the day, it's a lot of thank you, Lord. A lot of thank you, Lord. I don't think God needs to hear a hell of a lot from me. He knows. He'd rather that I pay attention and listen, which I don't always do, but yeah, and it means the world to me. I don't think there's any other way to stay sober.
Okay. Last question, then we'll go on break. What do you remember, you touched on it a bit, but what do you remember about the first time you were sponsored?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jerry was a fantastic sponsor in that the message he carried. So here I am in this treatment center. I've been there 2 weeks. I was almost dead when I got there. And now I've been eating 3 meals a day and sleeping. And it's amazing how the human body reacts. I'm strong now. I'm all good. I don't like those people. I don't like treatment. I don't like anything like that. So I'm thinking about, I just got to get the fuck out of here. I like AA. And so driving me back to the treatment center after the meeting, he shared with me that he had been in that treatment center 7 times. And I'm sitting next to him and I'm like, what? What? Yeah, 7 times. He said the last time I was there, a couple guys, they're both dead now, Dave Nielsen and Dave Jacobs, guys he knew from the Grove. He said they came up and they walked into my bedroom And they threw a big book on the bed and said, why don't you do what it says in there for a change, asshole? And they turned around and left. That's how nice people were then. What I heard was, so if I don't listen, I'm going to have to do this 7 times? I'm ready to cut my belly open now. I can't stand this. I don't like to be told what to do, ever. That shook me. That shook me. I thought, this is serious. So that was his message to me. Let's go ahead and do it your way. You can be in and out of places like this for the next 10 years, which I didn't want to do. So.
All right.
Jerry's still sober, too. So just lives up in Appleton.
Awesome. Well, that is all the questions we have for you. We are going to go on a 10-minute break, and then Mark is going to come back and share his experience, strength, and hope on a passage from the Big Book. All right, we're going to welcome Mark back up here, and he is going to read a page from the AA Big Book and spend the remainder of our meeting time sharing his experience, strength, and hope on that reading. Please welcome Mark back.
Yeehaw! First of all, I need to correct my failings. In 1988, Ronald Reagan was the president. So I was wrong. Let's start out with that idea right now. And I got to thank you guys. I think this whole archives idea is a great thing. Even though everything I say is it's just my experience. That's all. It has no more importance or validity than that. There's one AA program, but there are millions of experiences of that program because God doesn't run down one track. Sorry, if you don't know that, welcome to AA. You're going to figure that out. He doesn't even expect you to be very good at it. So yeah, Mark, alcoholic, and I'm going to read a little bit from We Agnostics, because I know when I got here, I heard a lot of stuff, but I'm like, well, yeah, but what do you mean? What do you people mean? What the fuck are we doing here, really? I mean, I understand the not drinking thing. Isn't that enough? I mean, I don't want to drink. I've been blessed with not wanting to drink since I got here. Booze stopped working for me long before I got here. So being free of it, for me, felt like being let out of jail. It wasn't like I was giving something up. So anyways, my experience is that these next couple paragraphs are exactly what this is all about. It's We Agnostics in the bottom of page 44. It says, if a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Now, my experience was, before I got sober, I was not doing well. So my idea was to get my shit together. How many people here have made an absolute commitment and decision to get your shit together? Oh, yeah. Okay. And my way of doing it, I owned a bar, and I dumped the operation of the bar on a guy that worked for me. And I disappeared for like 6 weeks. My folks had a place in Florida on Pine Island, which is north of Fort Myers, and it's east of Sanibel, Captiva, all those islands. And so there's a little mobile home, and I had a boat. So I lived like, I lived great for like 6-7 weeks. I lived on fresh fruit. I lived on seafood. I swam in the ocean every day. I was bombing around the Gulf of Mexico in my boat. No booze, no dope. All good. All good. I came back, and when I got off the plane in Milwaukee, I walked right up to my fiance and my mother. And I mean, I walked right up to them, and they did not recognize me. And they went like that, right? I'm brown as a coconut. My hair's bleached out, lighter. I'm wearing a white silk sport coat and like a peach-colored T-shirt. I look like Don Johnson. Remember that, the whole Miami Vice thing? And when they reacted, I thought, oh my God, you know, yeah, I'm okay now. I got my shit together. And a couple days later, I made a drink. And when I made the drink, I remember it like it was yesterday. There was no voice in my head that said, dude, don't you remember what you've been doing for the last 6-7 weeks? Hiding out on the island? No, there was no voice. I had no power. I had no ability to resist the first drink. I didn't even think about it. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Obviously. But where and how were we to find this power? And people talked about that in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous that I was attending. They talked about their conceptions of this power. Many of them referred to God. And many of them referred to God, and they were taught, you might have a Pentecostal sitting next to a Catholic. You might have somebody that don't know nothing about either of those faiths, but believes in this God. It says, well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Now that ought to get my attention. It's not just going to not drink. It's going to solve my problem. Anybody here got a problem? Well, it's like, well, only one? My first thought when I read that was only one? It's going to solve like I got a bunch of problems. But my essential problem is that I don't have the power to resist the first drink. That is my essential problem. All the rest of it flows from all kinds of places in my personality and in my lacking of character and a bunch of other things. But if I do not have the power to resist the first drink, the rest of this stuff is all academic. I've watched people try to have AA and vodka. It ain't even funny. It's ugly. But that's how desperate we can be to solve our problem. Because I don't know about you, but booze was an answer to my problems. Booze was, man, I had me a couple of drinks, and the power flows out my fingertips. I grow in stature. I grow in power. I grow in majesty. Sounds funny now, but at the time it worked. Unfortunately, that's not real. So that's my essential problem, is the power that I have is a lower power. It's called alcohol. It worked like a charm, but it's not real. It's not real, because we all know you got to get sober sooner or later, if nothing else. In my case, I couldn't hold the booze down anymore. I would get so violently ill after a 2 or 3 day drunk that I couldn't hold water down. That means I got to sober up, and I sober up, and what am I left with? So I inevitably always take another drink. So this kind of stuff's, you know, if you stay here and you do this, and you're involved and you're asking God's help, different things will get your attention at different times. And lately what's been getting my attention is this idea of power. And what does that actually look like? We're reading a book here on Wednesdays after the 10 a.m. meeting, The Power of Now. The idea of God existing in the now. Our program says that. And how it works, it says, may you find him now. So right now is the only time and place that God exists, and it's the only reality. So if you would have told me that when I was new, I'd have looked at you, get out of here. How the hell do I get the IRS off my ass? What about her? Never mind. we're not going to go down there. I'm a goof. I like to read, and I'm way overeducated. And having a good education there's nothing wrong with it, except it's absolutely useless as a treatment of alcoholism. So I started reading this book on the philosophies of the ancients, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. And I'm telling you what, man, their ideas of the world and their how to live in the world are awesome. They are awesome codes and philosophies for living life. And as I'm reading it, I'm kind of chuckling. I'm like, the only thing missing in all what they're talking about is this, yeah, but what if you don't have the power to do this? What if you I never met Marcus Aurelius, so I don't know if he actually lived that way, but he certainly wrote extensively about it. All this stuff is a sideshow. It's all wonderful. I like to amuse myself. But this book is not a sideshow. I can tell you this, and I'll share this from the bottom of my heart. I've been reading this book since, I actually am a real sicko. I read all the AA literature while I was in the treatment center because I had the kind of personality nobody wanted me to play dominoes with them. I was not invited into the whole treatment thing. And I just read. So I read all this literature. Again, it doesn't help. This is a cookbook. This is a cookbook. All of AA's literature is a cookbook. Until I start making recipes, I'll starve to death. But now that I've been doing this and I've survived this illness, I can tell you that there's absolutely nothing in this book that has not proven out over time to be true and to work. That's remarkable. That's remarkable. That's one of the reasons I am convinced myself, this is now that Bill Wilson didn't write this. God wrote this. God used Bill Wilson's hand. But how could a 3 years sober, I remember being 3 years sober. I couldn't tie my shoes. I mean, I was just starting to get to where I could string a sentence together. He wrote this book that almost 100 years later works flawlessly every time it is followed. So what my first sponsor's friends told him when they came up to the treatment center for the 7th time, and they were really sick of hearing his crap, and they threw the book on the bed and said, why don't you try doing it this time, asshole? Those are like loving words because Jerry has been sober ever since. It doesn't sound like loving, but it's truth is it's loving. So I hope that when I wake up tomorrow morning, I continue to act on these beliefs. Having beliefs is nice. It's wonderful. If I don't act on them, they're not worth much. So if you want to know what we're doing here, refer to page 45, right in the middle of We Agnostics. That is exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you, me, to find a power greater than ourselves, which will solve our problem. Bless you. Thank you very much.